self-development is the key to everything. Because if you don't self-develop, then the middle-class mentality of like, oh, the lottery, like, oh, something's just going to fall into my lap. No, you literally have to go out there and make stuff happen.
So when you look at somebody that is able to succeed both in their health and in business, it just tells about the kind of person that they are. And it's so important to have that as a leadership quality.
You only live once, literally. Take risks, get out there, do it.
Your employees don't work for you. You work for your employees.
That's facts.
And that is like the mentality we need to have. And the better that we provide our service, the more that they're going to provide their service.
You take the good and the bad from all your leaders, see what works, like what resonates with you, what makes you want to work for someone and not want to work for someone. If you're trying to tell people to do stuff and you don't look like you have your stuff together, then it's not going to work. People aren't going to listen to you.
Welcome back to the A-Lister Show. In the A-Lister Show, we bring in movers and shakers, hustlers and entrepreneurs, and today's guest is no different. We've got Nate Shipman with us today. He is the founder and head coach of the Alpha Academy, and we're going to get right into it, learn about his story and what he's working on. So, Nate, how you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How do you like San Diego?
I love it here. I've been here for 18 years.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to be hard to move away if I ever have to or ever want to.
Yeah.
For
all right.
sure.
So, tell us about yourself and what is it that you do?
All right. So I'm a small town kid from Iowa. I grew up and I had like 120 kids my entire high school. Very, very small. I wanted to get out of there though because a lot of people get trapped. And so I joined the Marine Corps. And I've been doing that for 18 years. And now I am getting out of the Marine Corps. And I'm starting up a business, Alpha Academy, because leadership and mindset training is something that isn't very common. Like they don't teach you that in high school. They don't teach you that in college. So my wife had essentially that stuff at her work. And she was like, yeah, we have these guys come in and they teach us leadership training. She like showed me some pictures of these guys. I'm like, these guys are bums. I'm like, how? And she's like, yeah, it was so boring and like so monotonous. And she's like, I had the light bulb to go off. And I was like, I literally lived and breathed this for 18 years. Like, this is what I do. And I've had guys hit me up, even though I've told them I'm starting a company. And they literally reach out to me, the guys that used to work for me. And they're like, bro, I want to work for you. Because like I loved you as a leader. And so I was like, I got this. This is what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge. I mean, especially, when you see somebody that's trying to tell you something, if they're not living, what they're trying to preach, then what they're saying kind of goes out the picture.
For sure.
And when someone looks at you, they're like, this motherfucker lives it. He is it.
That is fact. So it's a funny story you say that. I literally had a guy yesterday. I was filling up a propane tank for the grill at home, and a guy in 7-Eleven was like, hey, can I work for you? I'm like, for me? He's like, yeah. He's like, can I work for you? And I'm like, wow. I was like, damn. In my head, I was like, that's crazy. Like, it's actually like somebody like I bring that energy into the room, and just in a 7-Eleven gas station, people are like, no, this guy, like, look at him. Like, he obviously is successful. He's doing something with his life. And they asked me to work for him. And I was like, I took his number because I was like, yeah, I'm starting a company. And if I ever have a position open up, I'll hit you up. So, yeah.
That's funny. So tell me a little bit about the Marine Corps and specifically about your leadership experience in the Marine Corps.
Okay. So Marine Corps joined 2007. Obviously, you start as a junior guy and you're being led by leaders. With that, there isn't always good leaders. And again, the Marine Corps honestly doesn't teach you. They don't have like a curriculum like, this is a leader, this is what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do. So you take the good and the bad from all your leaders. You see what works, like what resonates with you. And you see your coworkers, what resonates with them and how they react to things and what makes you want to work for someone and not want to work for someone. If you create a toxic environment from the top, it literally trickles down through the whole system. And yeah, so over the 18 years, I learned from two guys, Pedro Vasquez and Victor Fusco, are two of my favorite leaders. And I took everything that they taught me and I applied it to myself and leading, and it's been great. And I've had all these guys, like I said, reach back out to me and they're like, bro, like, I want to be with you. I want to be around you. Like, I need your energy. And I always bring a lot of energy. I'm firm but fair, but so there's a fine line that you have to walk with these guys or with anybody, because if you're too nice, they'll take advantage of it and try to run over you. But if you're too mean, they don't want to be around you. So nobody wants to come to work and be in this toxic environment of just like walking on eggshells. Like, oh, I'm going to just get yelled at for something stupid. So, yeah, it's something that I learned, and it's anybody can learn it too. That's another thing a lot of people, I think, like you're just born a natural leader. Like, obviously, some people do have a little bit better presence, voice, tone, whatever. That's true. But you can learn leadership. I did not know how to be a leader. I was a small town kid from Iowa, 120 kids in my high school. My parents were divorced. I didn't have any guidance as far as leadership or doing any of that stuff. And I had a little bit of a rough time coming up in the Marine Corps because I kind of have a problem with authority. So it took me a little bit to learn about how that works and how to respond to people, because I was the guy that if you came down on me, I just shut down for the rest of the day. And I just sit in the corner and just mope around. So you got to learn different people's personalities. And that's the greatest thing about the Marine Corps for me. I literally have a kid from the Philippines right now, a kid from Thailand, a kid from Haiti, a kid that grew up in the backwoods of Texas. And so like all these different personality types, and they all react to everything differently. Everybody's culture is different, how they came up. Like the kid from New York is going to be way different than the kid from Montana versus the kid from South Florida. Like they all have their different personalities. And as a leader, you need to learn those things and what like resonates with them. And that's like one of the biggest things that I've learned is you gotta read the room, is what I would say. Yeah.
So I was in the Army, National Guard. All right, fine. But one thing I definitely understand, resonate with what you mentioned, that there's good leaders and bad leaders, and you got to take in what resonates with you and then replicate that for your own leadership style. What are some of the bad traits, like the bad leaders, if you will, that what makes a bad leader?
So to me, what makes a bad leader is someone that just does, just tells you and then doesn't help you or do anything. They don't live and do, they don't show you the path. So it's essentially like that boss concept of like the guy sitting on the desk with a bunch of his workers chained to the desk and they're dragging the desk. Or it could be, you could be the leader who goes out there and actually gets in the trenches with the guys, shows them what to do, leads by example, and actually lives what they say. So like if you're going out there and let's say, just for example, if you're like, hey, go be better at running, because in the Army, the Marine Corps, and Navy, you have to run in all of them. But who's going to listen to the guy that's fat and runs super slow and can't pass a PFT, and then he's telling you to go run? So that I was like, what? So for me, I was always the top performer in everything, because I could never felt like I could tell somebody to do something that I haven't done. And I wouldn't do that. And that's what makes a good leader to me. And bad leaders are the ones that don't live that life. They're unethical. They, out of shape, and they're sitting here telling you what to do just because they're in a position of power, which is very frustrating in the military because people, automatically think respect comes with the rank, and it's like, it's not how it works. Yeah. You give respect to get respect. And that is like one of my biggest philosophies, is showing genuine care for the people below you. And then they're going to resonate with that, and they're going to come back to you and want to work for you. So being a bad leader is just not respecting your guys, just thinking they have to do what you tell them to do just because you're in a position of power. And that is the quickest way to lose any rapport with any of the people that work for you. Yeah. So
a couple questions. So first of all, when you're talking and dealing with your subordinates or just a team, how do you identify like who the winners are going to be? Is there some traits that become apparent when you first meet a group of people? Like someone's going to stand out as someone that wins, and someone's going to have a hard time. Are there some things that stand out?
Oh, for sure. The person that is self-motivated and does things without having to be told, those are the ones, to me, like you can tell that right away. Because you got the people that will just kind of like sit around when there's nothing to do and they don't do anything. Then you got the other guy who's like, hey, there's kind of runs out thing to do, or they got the task done and then they come to you and ask, hey, what's next? Or they just start doing something else and you're like, hey, like there was something else I need you to do. Stop doing that, which is fine. I like that you're trying to get some more stuff done, but we need to go this direction versus the guy that just disappears for an hour and you're like, hey, like, did you get that task done? They're like, yeah, and then I didn't know what else to do, so I went and did nothing. And you're like, Very frustrating. So you can automatically tell the players and the pretenders when it comes to that for sure. And I'm currently working with those guys right now. I have Silva, who's one of my guys that works for me. He's the guy that you tell him to do something, he does it, and then he sits there and like hopefully they don't notice.
Come on, Silva.
All right,
get the program.
So is the kid that's just like running around. I don't even have to tell him to do anything. I just show up and he's already doing stuff. I'm like, hey, I just check in. Like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, X, Y, Z, because we're doing this because of that. And I'm like, all right, sick, let's go. I'm like, I don't even have to tell you what to do. It's perfect. So yeah, there's definitely going to be people like that and everywhere though. But that's part of life and that's part of being a leader. You have to deal with every different type of personality. Yeah. So Silva, I'm getting him to work. He's getting better. You train him, you mentor him. You're never going to have a bunch of rock stars and one thing. You're always going to be dealt the hand you're dealt, and you do with it what you need to make it work. For sure.
So this type of training where you have somebody with military experience coming into the corporate world is kind of popular, right? Like, Jocko does it and a lot of other people do it. Why do you think that's so common or interesting? Why do people feel like people with military backgrounds can provide value to people in the corporate world?
I think that because in the military, there's a rank structure, and it's very prominent. You have to follow it. So with that, you have the good leaders, and then you have the bad leaders. So I feel like a lot of military people will always experience that structure. And they lived it and they breathed it, and so they learn from the good and the bad, and that's why they're better at it than perhaps the corporate world, because you could have someone running a team as the manager, but they're all just kind of buddies, and they all just kind of hang out and do things. So nobody's in really a position of authority, so they don't really have somebody as a leader to go off of. And all their people around them are just subordinates, so they're all kind of on the same playing field. Whereas the military, it's a lot more structured. So you might have one or two guys in your team that are the same as you, but then there's always a next guy, and that guy answers to the next guy, which answers to the next guy, and they're all in the same work center. So it's very structured, and it's very good for that. So, yeah.
And that kind of translates in the corporate world, right? And
for sure.
They need that.
Yeah. Yeah. They need to learn that there needs to be more of a pecking order, more, what's the saying? Not enough Indians, too many chiefs. So yeah, you got all these people trying to be the chief, which is good. But if someone is pointed to that, power, they need to know what they need to do. They need to have an SOP, this is what you're going to do. You're going to sit down your team members. You're going to do this. If this is something's going wrong with another part of the operation, as in let's say you have document control for and project management and then the document control needs to talk to the project managers, and the project managers need to talk to the sales team, and the sales team need to talk to the design team, and then you come up with a way so they can all integrate and talk to each other, because then it starts to become the blame game where it's the document control didn't do that. Well, but did you tell them? Do you have a monthly meeting to get aligned with each other? Oh no, we don't do that. I'm well, we just leave it up to our managers to talk to each other. Well, did you tell your manager? Well, no, I just assumed that they already knew that and they were going to talk to him. I'm all that stuff is something I see all the time, because even though I'm in the military for 18 years, I did work in the civilian world for a while, just because to go through my divorce, I needed more money, and one of my buddies let me work for his company, and I was like, okay, this is chaotic. No one has structure. Everybody's running around saying, do this, do that, and nobody's listening to anybody, because who's that person? I don't have to listen to them. They're not above me. And it's just a team. Just get everything done so we can go home.
Yeah.
So yeah, I took over. Hey, I'm gonna do this, just so they're not hey, this guy's just telling me to do something because he just wants to go be lazy. I'm doing X, Y, Z. I need you to do A, B, C. And they're oh, okay, good. And then it gets people start banding together and working, instead of just being hey, go clean the sinks. Well, what are you doing? Don't worry about it. And then you're going to go just sit on your cell phone. That's not how it works.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Have you always had leadership characteristics, or do you feel like the military really developed that for you?
Military definitely developed that for me. I was kind of the class clown in high school. So I always had attention, but it wasn't the good attention. I the attention of hey, I want to listen to this guy because he's smart. I want to follow him. I was super, super skinny, super tall, 6'7", 176 pounds.
Wow.
So that was literally a beanpole. And so I never really had that presence. I have a high voice still, and it was even worse in high school. So no, I never had that. I definitely had some leaders in the Marine Corps that showed me, and they told me, they're like, hey, like, you're getting bigger, like, you have a presence, like, people want to follow you, like, you're in shape, you're motivated, like, you have what it takes to be a leader. And I was like, oh, okay, it's cool. So then I started learning that, reading books, taking the good and the bad, and then really seeing what resonates with people and what makes them click. And that's when it, like, really turned for me, was when I learned that different personalities and everybody likes to be led a different way, and there's, like, people you need to come down on. There's people if you come down on them too much, then they shut down. So learning all that was really, like, the biggest key for me to make the switch to being like, okay, I feel like I can effectively lead people, because there's, like, certain aspects that you need to learn, and if you don't do that, then you're never going to gain the respect from your peers or your team. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to me about these muscles you got, man. Tell me about what kind of workout plan, what kind of fitness plan you on.
So
it's hard to imagine you being a skinny dude. I mean, I'm pretty skinny. I'm trying to get that level.
So a lot of my fitness advice I take from Greg Doucette. He's a YouTube guy, and cardio is one of the biggest things for me, as I do cardio every day, 6 days a week. Sorry, not every day.
What kind of cardio?
So I do steady state cardio. Nothing crazy, because you don't want to, like, kill yourself, because then you can't work out the next day. So steady state cardio, low impact, because I'm getting old. I do stair climber, I do the elliptical, and I do the incline treadmill. I don't really do a whole bunch of running or any of that stuff, just because, again, it's hard on the joints. I did do some half marathons in my day, and that, just training for that and doing that, I was like, okay, if I keep this up, like, by 40, I'm going to be, like, crippled. So I took it easy on that. And then I lift full body 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And just because stimulating your muscles more than once or twice a week is, like, the ideal, is optimal. But yeah, so I've always been into that, though. Like, since high school, like, I started lifting, and I've just always, it's been my mental therapy for forever. And it just, something I've always done, and I love it. And I know that's, like, when you just said, like, I walked in here, Willie's like, wow, this dude's a big dude. And like, so when you have that, like, presence, or, like, you're in shape, like, people see you walk in the room, like, okay, this guy's got his shit together. So it's like, it already makes people think that you're already, if you have the discipline to be in shape, it's like, okay, this guy's doing something with his life. It automatically puts you a step above everybody else.
You can't buy it.
No.
You can't. You can buy a chain, you can buy a car, but you can't buy an amazing body. I mean, well.
I mean, there's a certain extent, like, you could pay a whole bunch, but that's not. But you can tell when someone's had, like, liposuction and the lips and the fillers and that totally. But, like, no, for, like, the biceps, the abs, and you have to earn those for sure.
Yeah.
Those are not something that you just get overnight, or you can just buy, for sure.
Yeah. And you look at people that are really in shape, and what it tells me is, like, this guy has the discipline to actually make this happen. And a lot of people, more ignorant people, that will look at somebody with muscle like, oh, that guy's too big, I don't like that. As if like they're doing it for your aesthetics.
Right.
But when I look at somebody that has a physique, I think this guy has been consistent for years. Mm-hmm. And, like, I've tried to be consistent for months at a time sometimes, and it can be hard, and I go on and off, on and off. And that's why I don't have the results, like, that I would want, or the results that I'm looking at somebody and that they have. And so when you look at somebody, that is able to succeed both in their health and in business, it just tells about the kind of person that they are. That's why it's so important.
It's true.
And it's so important to have that as a leadership quality.
It is. Yeah, because if you're trying to tell people to do stuff and you don't look like you have your stuff together, then it's not going to work. People aren't going to listen to you. Like, having a manager come in who's, like, fat and blown out of his, uniform, you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, no, definitely not listening to that guy. I also think, too, with the I was just thinking about what you were saying, that when people talk about being in shape, and they're like, there is a lot of people with that discipline, but then they also don't have the right tools to like succeed in life. So it's one thing to be like super motivated and super disciplined going to the gym, but like what are you doing with that discipline? You got to use it in other parts of your life. So that's something that I learned as well. So there's a lot of people that are just obsessed with the gym. It's like, what else do you do, bro? Like nothing. I work at a warehouse stocking shelves. Like, damn, like you could turn that, and that's what I want to teach people too. Like part of that of my course is like, if you have the discipline already because you're that jacked guy, but like you're not doing anything with your life, like bro, like I could help you mindset. You need to get the car out of the driveway. You need to start going. Yeah. Like you only live once, literally, and if you don't try something in your life, you're gonna grow old and have your kids run around or grandchildren if you get any, and you're gonna look at your life and be like, wow, like what legacy did I leave for them to talk about? Like. I didn't do anything. I just worked in, a warehouse my whole life and just scraped by. And now I'm just in a home by myself with nothing to show for it. So for me, that was like one of the biggest things that got me motivated and going was like, you literally only live once. Take risks. Get out there. Do it. Like people are so scared of the unknown, which I mean, I was too. I don't blame people for being scared of the unknown because it is scary. But once you start going in the unknown more often, it becomes normal. So basically get comfortable being uncomfortable, and then it becomes comfortable. And honestly, like over the last like 6 months, I've literally just been out of my comfort zone a ton because I knew my military career was coming to an end. So I was like, hey, I don't have like daddy, Uncle Sam to pay my bills every day now. So I was like, all right, time to start, getting on social media, grinding, learning new courses. I signed up with Mike. Mike's been absolutely awesome, and I've just been full into it. And yeah, I mean, I've had to shut down some of my other hobbies and stuff, but like that's just part of the journey. Yeah. And it's like it's not like it's gonna ever go away. Like I can go back to do those things, but you definitely need to just get going, get started, do something, learn something. You can't. Self-development is the key to everything. Because if you don't self-develop, then you're just going to stay stagnant, and that mentality of like the middle class mentality of like, oh, the lottery, like, oh, something's just going to fall into my lap. No, you literally have to go out there and make stuff happen. Make your own luck. Luck is not like a thing. It is just people like, oh, well, you're just lucky. Like, no, you didn't see behind the curtain. Like this guy's been grinding for 5 years, probably slept in an office because he couldn't afford anything, and then he made it. I mean, it's crazy. But so that resonates a lot with me. And that is, I mean, trying to tell the world that. And it's hard because sometimes it comes off a little harsh, but that's reality.
Hey, life is harsh. Yeah. Speaking of harsh, when I see somebody that's overweight, I judge them. I'm telling you right now, like if you're overweight, like if you're out of fit, like people will judge you. And, especially because I do like jujitsu and stuff, and I'm in the gym and stuff, and I'm like it's not that hard. Like it's not that hard to. I mean, especially if you are overweight, you have like the low hanging fruit, where you could just diet for like 3 months, man, and like just like get in the gym like for a little bit. I'm on the 6-week transformation challenge right now with Miguel.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and that's been awesome.
Yeah,
and it's crazy. I'm on day 11 right now, and just the changes that I've made in the past 11 days. It's incredible what you can accomplish when you have a focused effort and a dedicated purpose. Like when you know where you want to go and you know how to get there. And that's when having external forces and working with other people can really be beneficial, because sometimes we have like the raw materials, but we don't really have like the recipe, right? Yeah. And that's where someone like you and the Alpha Academy can come into place, because they can kind of, you have a team that all has all the skills that you need to accomplish the mission, but they need like the recipe, the plan, and to actually put it into action.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell me a little more about what Alpha Academy does and what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay, so the first thing you do when you're going to sign up is we're going to just go over like your daily schedule.
Like, and is this for companies or is this for individuals?
So there's going to be 2 offers. So for right now, initially I have just the offer for just individuals, and then later on, after like I launch this funnel and get this website up, I'm going to start the other one. I've already I got a meeting with Mike in like 2 weeks, and we're going to build that offer as well. But initially, the first offer is just so it's just for people to come in, and first thing I do is I go over their schedule, because everybody's like, I ain't got time. Like, you got time, I promise. I promise you got time. Because, like, you're probably wasting your time doing X, Y, Z, or whatever. So the first thing we do, go over the schedule. And after that, we're going to go over the goals. And after the goals, I'm going to make a plan for them for the workout, and then see where their nutrition's at, and see if if they need help with that. Because not everybody does. Some people are going to have that, but they just don't have, like, the leadership skills. So that's, like, really what they're coming in for. So the first thing I'm going to teach them is leadership. And that's square one of my training. And then after that, it's going to go into mindset. I might switch that around, go mindset, then leadership. But either way, they're going to still get what they need to get. And then after we do that, and then we'll go into the mindset piece, in which we'll transform them. And that'll go into the fitness. And through all those courses, I'm going to be checking with them, keeping them accountable. They're going to have one-on-ones with me. To make sure and see where they're at. I'm going to see where they're at in their job, if they have goals for, moving up the corporate ladder, or if they're a business owner and they're like, hey, like, I can't get my team to respond, or if they're a CEO, because some CEOs are CEOs because they are very good at numbers and they're very good. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen CEOs and I'm like, wow, like you're the CEO of this place? I was like, wow, okay. Because they just get, like, the business and, like, where the business needs to go, but they don't know how to get people to do what they need them to do. So it's like, so my focus is going to be for, mainly, middle-aged men or younger men in their 20s to want to get the leadership skills so they can move up the corporate ladder. And that's what I'm going to teach them. And make them look the part. So when they come in, people are like, okay, like, this guy's got his stuff together. So just an overall transformation of their mind, their leadership skills, and then also their fitness, so they can, look the part and have that presence when they step into a room, step in front of their peers, and their peers are like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. Yeah. Just like I was saying earlier about that story, just like alone, I could be a complete, idiot, but just because of walking into a room, I'm tall, I take care of myself, and I'm well dressed, and all of that, people are automatically like, wow, that guy. So like I'm trying to make that, like, resonate with people, because I know that people see that, and then they naturally do that. They're drawn to those people. They just don't realize it. They're not realizing why they're drawn or why they think that person is successful. It's just how they look and how they present themselves. So
yeah, and the amazing thing is that so many people would love the opportunity to work with a Marine.
Yeah.
And not just a Marine, but someone that's been in there for 18 years, almost 2 decades, and held leadership positions, and understands the dynamic of how to work with people. And you have the opportunity to work with somebody at the high level that's been in the Marine Corps without having to join the Marine Corps.
That's literally one of my things I push out in a lot of my social media is like, hey, I literally did the 18 years of suffering for you. You can take everything that I learned in 18 years, I'm going to ball it into, like, a few courses for you and one-on-ones and masterminds, and give you all those details and everything, the good, the bad, and I promise you, like, it's going to change your life. Like, it's hard to explain to people, I mean, how much I had to go through. I can't even think of how many leaders I had. Over 10. So, like, I took all the good and the bad from all of them and, put it in my brain, my toolbox. I used it, saw what actually worked and what didn't work. And, again, like, I have guys that loved working for me, and I still do, like, to this day. And so I probably will hire on a lot of my ex-guys coming out of the military and have them work on my team for me. So, yeah.
What's your favorite part about being a leader?
Honestly, it's seeing people grow. So they come to me, I come to them, I get personal. I ask them, like, hey, how's your family doing? Like, what are your goals? Do you have, this or that? And I help them get to those goals, and then I push them to get to those goals, because I can see them, struggling a little bit. And it's like, a lot of people are like, you can't lead the horse to the water, but you can't make it drink. I'm like, well, I make it drink too. So like, I'm constantly have my thumb on the pulse. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing right now? Like, did you do this? Did you do that? And I'm constantly checking in, and it actually shows that you care. That's the biggest thing. Like, wow, this guy cares more than I do about my own success. Like, it's kind of like a father figure. You don't want to disappoint him. You don't want to let him down. So I use that a lot in my leadership to make people, perform and do what they need to do, because they don't want to let you down. Because like, they feel like, wow, this guy's taking all this time and effort and energy into me. Like, and I can't even get out of my own way, like that's like, it just, I don't know why, but it resonates with people a lot, and it works.
Yeah.
I mean, it works for me. I had leader Pedro Vasquez. He was just little short, tiny Mexican guy. And that dude was just one of the best leaders I've ever had. And I never wanted to disappoint him because he was so good. We call him the wizard because he just knew everything. I was like, what? Like, how does this guy know everything all the time? And like, he would always check me. He'd have a book for me in my to-do list, and he would look at it at the end of the day. He's like, hey, what's up with this? And he would just go down the list. And like, he was super firm, but fair. He was fun to be around. But when you messed up, like, you knew you messed up, which is totally fine because you respected that he was like cared. He's like, all right, like, I want you to be better. Why aren't you better? Why aren't you getting better? What are you doing? So, I mean, for me, that's like, he made that resonate the most with me, and that's what I do for the people under me now. And it works the best. It makes people, you genuinely care, and that's going to make people work.
I agree with that, especially my experience with leadership. There are people that would come down on you hard, and then it would make me resent them. Mm-hmm. And then I had people that I respected, and when they told me to do something, it's because, and I would do it because I didn't want to disappoint them, because I wanted to be on their team. I wanted to be accepted by them.
For sure. Give respect to get respect. Yeah. Respect is not a billet. Respect, like, people think that because they're in a position of authority, like, you have to respect me. And absolutely not true. Mm-hmm. And that is another thing that you learn quickly. And I have to train some of the, so you have like in the Marine Corps, you have ranks like lance corporals, sergeants, and then, staffs. I've had a lot of like my corporals, the guys that are just above the junior guys, and they're super mean because they think like, oh, I'm above them now. Like, they have to listen to me. Gotta pull them to the side and be like, hey, big dog, like, you don't, just because you got the rank of corporal, like, you were just with those guys yesterday wearing the same rank. And I was like, now all of a sudden you're that much better than them and you're just treating them like crap. I was like, no, you got to give respect to get respect. And I know it feels funny, like, giving someone of a lower position than you respect, but it's going to resonate with them so much that it's going to change their mindset, like, automatically, like day one. Like, when the new guy walks in and you get a brand new employee, if you're the manager and you go up to him and show genuine interest in him, like, he's already going to have this level of like, oh, wow, like, a sense of belonging. Like, I want to be here. Like, I respect this guy. And then you're already going to have, just day one, that is like one of the biggest things for me is when I got a new Marine in, I'd sit them down, show genuine interest in their life, show them that I cared, but like also lay out my expectations of like, hey, I need you to work. I need you to do this and this and this. So like, they're like, oh, okay. So then just me automatically showing interest, being invested in them, like, that's how you're going to start it off on the right foot. So if you're ever getting new employees, like, or, don't be like, he's the new guy, make him do the dumb stuff. Like, no, that's not how it works. Like, again, there is a pecking order, but you could be more respectful about it, and you don't just, shit on people because they're the new guy. That generally doesn't go over very well.
One thing I've heard from Gary Vee, you know Gary Vee?
Oh yeah, Gary Vee.
He hit me with his one line this time. I mean, he didn't just hit me; he put it on his social media. But he said, "You don't work for your employee. Like, your employees don't work for you. You work for your employees."
That's facts.
And that is like the mentality we need to have, because like, we're providing a service for them. A positive work environment, and the better that we provide our service, the more that they're going to provide their service.
For sure, yeah. So, yeah, working for your juniors or your subordinates is, again, that if you show them that you're there for them and work for them, they're gonna work for you. Yeah. You can't just, like, if you're in the back not doing anything, not supporting them, not trying to have their back, like when they come in and corporate comes down and they come in with some bullshit, and then you're like, hey, that's not going to happen. And then you fight for them. They're like, oh, wow, this guy's not trying to let us do all this dumb stuff that corporate's coming down with. Like, if you work for them or you're trying to get them promoted, and you're trying to, if they have something comes up and they got a family issue and they need a little time off, and you like let them have a little time off without using PTO and just like have their back whenever they need it, it's going to make them have your back again when it's like that father figure. Now it's time for them to return the favor of working for you. Like, I'm like, well, I don't want to let him down because he doesn't let me down. So if you're always there for your subordinates and the people that work under you, like, you're automatically going to be 10 steps ahead of the guy that just sits in the back all day and just tells people what to do and doesn't. That's everything too. You got to be in front of them working. Like,
yes.
I hate the managers that like have their own office down the hallway and like their team's in this completely different room. Like, no, like when I walk into my work center in the Marine Corps, if there was any barriers up that I couldn't see my guys, I automatically moved the shop around and made it so they could see me working and doing stuff, and I could oversee everything.
Right.
Because when they see you working and doing stuff, like it automatically, they're like, okay,
Yeah.
I need to be doing the same thing, and it just gives them that sense of like, why do I have to do this and he doesn't, kind of thing. And it doesn't matter if you're in a position of authority or not. Everybody's going to have that, because if you're showing up late and leaving early, they're automatically going to be like, why does he get to do that? Like, I get it, like he's above me, but like it just gives you that bad taste in your mouth. And
Yeah.
it's so true. So if you beat everybody to work and you're the last one to leave, like, who are you to not tell your subordinates, like, hey, you need to do this or that? And they can't be like, well, you just leave early every day. Like, they don't have anything to go off of because you're already above them in every aspect. And so they have nothing to come back with. And it's going to make them be like, okay, yeah, he's right. So
There's a concept that I heard, and it really kind of sums that up, and maybe you've heard about it too, but like servant leadership.
yeah.
You know, and that concept really kind of sums it up. It's like you aren't a boss, you are a servant, and through that servant mindset, you're actually able to lead people. Like you lead them within the ranks, not from out front.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Showing, being, like I said, being in the trenches with them, showing them that you're doing work, showing that you've done it, showing them that you know how to do it even better than they do. Whenever they have questions, you can answer them. That's why, like, I like to know every aspect of like whatever my team's doing. I'm gonna know how to do it, or I'm gonna figure out how to do it before I tell them to do it. Because I'm never gonna be the one where like, hey, how do you do this? And you're like, I don't know. I'm like, well, why are you the boss or the manager, or whatever position you're in? You're supposed to be, I'm supposed to be able to come to you with questions, and you don't have the answers. So like, why are you above me?
Right.
Why, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why another reason why I'm in great shape is because any of my Marines to this day, me being 36 years old, I got 22-year-olds, I still run a better PFT score than every single guy in my shop. And just for the reason of, I'm never going to let them be like, if I constantly tell them they need to be in shape, need a PT, I take them to the gym with me. I'm never going to have one of them say, hey, you can't tell me that you have to work out because I'm better than you.
Yeah.
I've had it. I've had a few in the past that have been better than me, but it's like, it's rare. So I'm always trying to be the top. And I feel like that's something that every leader needs to emulate. Like, they need to be the best at what they do. And if they're not, they need to work on being the best they need. Then you have the right information. And if you're not doing that, or you're just hanging out because you're the manager and they're doing everything for you, and you're not trying to get better, learn the job, or keep up to date on the latest and greatest of what's going on, then you're going to fall from that position real quick, because you're going to have a guy that comes in who's smarter than you, who's working harder than you, and he's going to take your position.
Yeah. And it really gives them something to shoot for. I mean, they all want to beat you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
They're all coming for you.
Yeah.
Right?
It's true.
And you too. So like
that motivates you too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They know you're coming for you, so you want to make sure that you're steps ahead of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That is facts.
What got you to join the Marine Corps in the first place? Why did you feel like you want to join the military?
Honestly, that's actually a really good question. So my sister was in the Navy. I'm the youngest of 7. My oldest sister went to the Navy, and then all my other brothers and sisters in between went to college and played sports, and like they flunked out. And I was like, man, like, I'm not like the smartest kid in school. So I was like, I don't know if I want to go to college and play sports and then fail out. So I was like, you know what, let me join the military and get some experience first, and some maturity under my belt before I go out and jump into the real world. The Marine Corps, I chose that because my buddy in my same class joined it, and he's like, hey man, you should just join the Marine Corps. Me at the time, I didn't know that the Marine Corps recruiter is way more like gung-ho and trying to go and get people, because it's hard. Because the Marine Corps doesn't offer you a bonus. It's the hardest branch, et cetera, et cetera. So the Air Force recruiter didn't even call me back. He didn't even care.
Everyone wants to go to the Air Force.
Right? I mean, to this day, I still do.
What did I do?
I was like, oh, I made a mistake. But no, I love the Marine Corps. But no, then the Army recruiter, it was just kind of like, he was a little more motivated. Like, he called me back, but he wasn't still. But the Marine Corps recruiter, like, this guy literally showed up to my school like the day I called him, Then that night he showed up to my house, had dinner with me and my family.
Oh my gosh.
Right? I was like, yo, this guy is like on it. And then like that night he got the good to go from my parents and from me, and we drove to MEPS.
Wait, that same night?
That same night.
You called the recruiter the next day. He showed up to the school.
Yep.
And then you had dinner with your family. And then that same night you ran off to MEPS?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
We stayed in a hotel down there, went to MEPS the next morning.
Yeah.
I got, did the whole process, and it was insane.
Wow.
I was like, wow. So that's literally what got me. It was just his effort was all that got me. I didn't honestly know anything about the military. I didn't know the Marine Corps was going to be the hardest. Like, I just saw some.
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that until
At the time?
I did. Like, I could have backed out still because I was in the DEP program the delayed entry program, which is something that you're in before you leave for boot camp. I was in that for about a year because I got hurt prior to me leaving to boot camp. I got in a car accident, so I had to stick around there a while. So I could have backed out at any point, but I did learn quickly that the Marine Corps was not the easy route. Plus, I wasn't going to get a bonus, and so everything was just like, I was like, all right, whatever. But then again, that's a little bit of that, like, it's a challenge. Like, that's kind of what they feed you. It's like, hey, yeah, we don't offer this, but like, you're going to be a Marine. Mm-hmm. And they're like that. Like, people, you hear that, and you're automatically like, hey, like, that's top of the pecking order. And you're like, okay. So they sell you on that, which it worked. So that's why I joined the Marine Corps. Biggest thing was my buddy. He literally came up to me and was like, hey, man, in the hallway of the high school, he's like, hey, you should join the Marine Corps. I'm like, why? And he's like, just check it out, man. I was like, all right. And my sister's in the Navy. My sister did not want me to join the Marine Corps. She was like, she's like, the Marine Corps is the guy that if you're going home from the bar at the end of the night, you want to go home with that guy because he's like, he can protect you. But she's like, they're just different. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what do you mean by different? She's like, they're just a little bit off kilter. And I'm like, all right. And I was like, I kind of like that. Because I was like, resonated with me a little bit because I was always like the class clown and like I wanted to prove that I could do that stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So what's next for you? What's your goal with this Alpha Academy?
I mean, the goal is, I honestly just love helping people. And the biggest thing for me is I see a lot of corporate and a lot of people that just need that training. Like it's not something that you can just go out and you just find in books. Books is like the biggest thing. Like I even went on YouTube. There's not really a whole lot of stuff like leadership training. And it's so important because I've seen it like destroy a complete, like if you have a leader that's toxic, it just trickles down and it can destroy the, like people say, hey, we got a new manager and I don't like him. Like, and then people just start, like if you're a business owner, that should be like one of the biggest things you invest in is your leaders. You should make sure that they're doing it properly because if you can hire a bad leader and you can destroy a whole department and have all these people leave that you were good workers because you hired this guy who didn't quite have the right training. Like he might be good and he probably would be if he just knew what to do, but he just has, whatever society or however he grew up, like you can learn all this stuff. So if you're not investing in your leaders within your company's going to eventually fall apart if you have the wrong people in the wrong spots, because then the people that are good, that are working, you put someone above them that isn't good and it's just toxic. And then those people talk about how toxic it is to all their coworkers, and their coworkers, this guy sucks. Let's get out of here. And also people need to put themselves out there more as like non-business. Let's just say you work in that business. You need to make yourself known. So what you accomplish, what you're doing, so like showing leadership skills so you can be up in that manager position so you can climb that ladder and go to the next step. If you're not emulating that stuff, then you're not going to make it in life. So self-development is key there. So for me, I really want to help the individuals as well get in shape, get their mindset right. Fitness is a big part of it. Like I'm not just fitness. I'm more of like the leadership, but like to be a good leader, like you need to look the part. Yeah. Having a good mindset, being ethical, being positive, not always bringing that toxic environment of being like the boss or complaining about the company. And like you are the they. So when the coworkers are like, oh, they're screwing us again, like you're the they. Mm-hmm. So you need to make sure that the they is not screwing the masses. So and you need to change people's mentality about that. And so like giving people those tools to like move up in the corporate world is like what I want to do. That's like one of my biggest goals is as many individuals, get companies, get everybody on board with the right way to treat people. Which there is good leaders out there, like obviously, but I just don't see it enough to where it's like a thing that people like really invest in, and I think they need to, because I mean that can make or break your company for sure. Is having the wrong guy in the wrong spot, or the wrong girl in the wrong spot, and just creating a toxic environment. I mean, I've seen it even as low as a donut shop level. Like I saw a female got put in charge of the manager, but she like the reason why she got put there is because she liked to say stuff. So she would like tell people to do things, but like she did get stuff done, but she was also a horrible manager because she was like super toxic. So she was like not nice to anybody. She complained about everything all the time. But so it was kind of like I was like, wow, like why did he put her like there? Like you're losing people right now,
right,
because she's in this position. I was like, that's cool. She like stands up for herself, but there's more to leadership than just being the person that's the loudest in the room or being like, hey, here I am. So I'm going to teach people to basically stand out in the right way, make yourself known by telling your boss or manager like what accomplishments you've done or like ideas that you come up with, or don't just hide in the back and think like, oh, I'll just hang out here and just get comfortable, because being comfortable is like the pill for disaster in your life, because people get to a certain point and they're like, oh, I'm good here, like I don't need to move up and be better. It's like yeah you do. You need to get comfortable being uncomfortable to move up the ladder, and you just need to develop yourself. So
yeah. How do people become uncomfortable? Like, what do you do once you're in that kind of comfort stage? You feel yourself kind of getting a little fat and happy. So what do you do?
Oh, I mean, that's honestly like, so for me, I feel like that all the time, but I know it's different for everybody. I always feel like I need to be doing more. But honestly, to tell that you're in that spot is that you're not developing, you're not moving up, or you're not wanting that next position, you're not working towards that next position. Like if your goal isn't like, hey, I just got promoted to project manager. Now it's like, hey, I want to be project manager 2, or I want to be the project manager of this, or I want to be, the manager of this division. So you need to constantly be thinking of the next step. So essentially when your goal, you reach it, you make new goals. And if you're not having a goal, a new one, like you're not shooting for anything. Like you just, even for myself, like having a goal and a purpose is like everything.
Right.
Because if you don't feel like you have a purpose, then you're definitely going to slowly slide down and be like, like, what am I doing? Like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Like, you need to find your purpose, have a purpose, set goals. And if you start to get comfortable, or, I say just life just gets monotonous, and you're like, I keep going to the gym, change it up. I have different programs. Change it up. What type of workouts you're doing? I change it up all the time. Like I always like get something new, because when you get something new, it's just like the new shiny car. You're like, oh, I want to try it out. This car's so awesome. I love it. And then it's like, then after a couple of months, it's just a car.
That's wild, isn't it?
Right? But then when you get a new workout, you're like, oh, I want to see the results I'm going to get, or wow, what's going to happen now? And then if you keep changing stuff up in your life, and that's how you keep yourself out of that cycle of like, oh, it's the same thing over and over again. Mm-hmm. So yeah, always constantly changing it up, and just thinking about stuff, being innovative like that.
Yeah. What kind of personal development are you doing? Are you do you have any books that you would recommend people get into, or influencers people should follow?
Message to Garcia is one of the books and the Marine Corps recommends to you, and it's basically a book of just get it done. In a sense of like, if somebody, so that's one of my biggest pet peeves from when my guys are, I'll tell them to go do something, they'll run into one roadblock.
Yes.
I know Mike Barron talks about this with the branch thing, but it's similar to that. So basically they run into one problem, they turn around and come back like, oh, this came up. I'm like, okay, did you do this? Did you ask this person? Did you go to the next person? Like, what did you do to like try to get past that barrier? And they're like, nothing. They just said it was, I was like, watch. I'll grab them. I'll go. They'll come with me. We'll go to that same person, and they'll be like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, who else can we do? Like, who else knows something? And I'm like, all right, here. And then I'll go to that part. I'm like, oh, you got to call this number. Call the number. I'm like, okay. So you always like get to the answer, and instead of just running the first roadblock, the parents like, oh, I don't know. Well, then I was like, go to someone else.
Man, that is my biggest pet peeve.
Right.
I Oh man, it's like yeah. You'll tell, hey, can you go take it? Like as a leader, you struggle with that because it's like I don't want to have to tell you every. It'll take me 5 times longer to tell you every step to accomplish this task than for me to just go do it myself.
Right.
Now the tricky part is that once I get good at documenting what those steps are, then I can just give that out and now have a scalable process. But it's like really frustrating because I get caught myself like I just want to do it because it's going to take me way longer. But when I find people that I say, here's the task, here's what I need done. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. This is what I need done. Figure it out.
Yep.
Because if I had to do it, I would figure it out.
Yeah.
There's resources, there's people, you figure it out.
Yeah.
And man, when I find somebody that I give them a task, I don't give them a task, I give them a problem and they go solve it. Like that's like my new best friend, we're running together.
Yep.
But
100%.
99 out of 100 people that I've worked with, either on my team or as employees or whatever, they come, yeah, I tried it, but it really wasn't working. Hey, so what are you going to do about it? And somebody told me one thing, because this is a common soul problem that somebody told me one time that it really resonated with me. They called it the 1-3-1. Okay. So it's whenever you come to me with a problem, and a lot of times they'll come to you like, hey man, I tried to do that thing, but like it's not working. Okay, so or like I did this thing and I had this problem. So 1-3-1 is I want one clearly defined problem, like clearly defined problem. Mm-hmm. What are the 3 solutions that you could potentially come up with? And then what is the one that you recommend the most? And I started doing that with some people and it's like crazy. Like you already have the solutions, but it's like you don't. And another. So like I don't always do it like that because it's a little bit corny. But what I do now is when somebody tells me, like when I'm employee, hey man, I can't do this job because something's going on. Okay, so what do you recommend? And now they think that they're the expert and they're the problem solver because they are. Mm-hmm. You know, because like why are you coming to me? Like you're the boss. Like no, we're a team.
Right. And
each person has to be able to figure out and problem solve on their own. If I were to tell you to do everything, you wouldn't grow. We wouldn't get the job done. And I think the military does a good job at that to some degree. I think 100%. Some soldiers, they really need to be told exactly what to do. But at some level too, organizations can't operate if they require to be told everything. So they really encourage, despite what a lot of people think, I think the military does encourage independent thinkers and 100%. Problem solvers.
For sure. I was just talking about that today with my wife and like what she does in her work. A lot of my guys have a lot better ideas than me. And I tell them like, hey, when I say something and if you think there's a better way, bring it up.
Yeah.
I'm not the guy that's going to be like, no, do it my way because I'm the boss. No. Like, and a lot of the times they have a lot better idea. They're like, no, we should do it like this. But I build that trust and rapport to know that they can come to me with that. And that I tell them like, do this, do that.
Yeah.
And that's why that's why they feel comfortable saying like, hey, no, I don't think that's a good idea. They know I'm not going to like blow up or be like, oh, that's stupid. Why would you recommend that? No, I'm like, hey, that's a good idea. Like explain more. I don't just like run with it right away, but if they have a good explanation and they come to me with solutions and not problems, like, hey, I ran into this problem, but I did this. I'm like, all right, awesome. Like, cool. I'll never like tell somebody that their idea was dumb or make them feel stupid for bringing up an idea that they think might work better. What I will do, though, is, kind of dissect it a little bit to try to get an understanding of what and why. And then from that, we might come to the agreement that, yeah, it's really good. Or, hey, did you think about this, though? And they're like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. And you're like, yeah, see? So that's why we got to do like this. So there's always the why, which I hate when people say the why generation. I actually like the why generation because I was the why generation. And I like explaining the why. So somebody be like, we're doing this and this and this, and I'll just tell them, this is why. And then it just makes them already feel like, okay, I'm just not doing this for no reason. That's, again, comes back to the purpose. So it's like, if you give them the reason and the purpose of why they're doing something, they're going to be like, oh, okay, I understand.
Yeah, that's huge when it comes to having somebody be able to problem solve. Because if I say, hey, go run up that hill, right? But then if they understand why we're running up the hill, then if they do come across some kind of problem, then they're going to be able to come up with a solution because they understand what the overall objective was.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other thing, too, where I think before when you said when you have people go out and you tell them to do something and they come back and they're like, well, I just ran into the first problem. Because what they think is that you are going to have a problem with whatever they do. They think
Yes.
that they need your approval
Yeah.
to do stuff, like to operate on their own. It's like, no. Like, I just need you to get it done.
Yeah.
Like, you have my approval to figure it out however that needs to get done. And then you figure out the solution, and then you bring it back to me.
Yeah.
And then if there's something wrong, we'll talk about it. But at no point ever am I going to discipline you for going out and thinking on your own. I'll be like, hey, you know what? That was good incentive, but like, it just, this is why it didn't work. And they're like, oh, okay. But I will never, I never make people feel like they need to come back to me and get my approval for everything, because I know there is people like that, because they come off very mean and like, my way's the highway. And so that's why people will lose that sense of trying to figure stuff out on their own. They'll just be like, oh, couldn't figure it out. Let's go back and ask the boss man, what's the next step? Because, I have to be his puppet.
Yeah.
So if you take away the strings of being the puppet, then it gives people more freedom to think. And it's honestly amazing what they do, because it makes my job so much easier, because they come up with a lot better ideas, and I'm just like the guy that's responsible for it all. So when you're the manager, you're just the guy that's overall responsible for everybody. You do need to be the smartest guy in the room, but you don't always have to have the best idea.
Yeah.
So that for me.
So and one thing I learned in the military and in terms of leadership also is the concept of decentralized leadership, because if the leader ever goes down, there needs to be people that aren't afraid to step up.
Yeah, that 100%. One of my best mentors, Pedro, he was like, "What if I die tomorrow?" He would always say that. I'd ask a question. He'd be like, "What if I died tomorrow?" I like
that.
What would you do? I'm like, God, this guy.
I wish I could say that to my employees, but I don't think that would resonate the same. I don't know.
You always say that.
That's good.
Because he's like, "What if I died tomorrow? What would you do?" I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go figure it out. Because he's like, I have all the answers, but I was like, I'm not. He's like, I'm not always gonna be here. What are you gonna do when I leave? Or And I was like, wow. And that resonated out with me, because I was like, all right, I'm gonna stop always, taking the easy route and just asking him and just figuring it out on my own, because that makes you overall better. Because when, again, you don't have the answer right in front of you, you're going to be like, oh, I already know what to do because I've done this so many times. I'm going to go to X, Y, Z. I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to get to the answer. So yeah, that 100% is true.
Yeah. So we're almost out of time.
No worries.
And I'd like you to tell me if there's anything else that you'd like to tell the audience, anything else, any other message you want to get out to everybody.
I mean, honestly, look at yourself. Look at your business if you own a business, and honestly think about like what it could do for your business and for you to learn leadership skills. So I don't have to necessarily teach your entire business. I could teach you, and you can teach your business. Use those leadership skills to trickle down your entire corporate ladder. Or you can have me come in and do it, and that is going to be one of the best decisions for production, for just everything, and creating a better environment, worker retention. So when you have the good workers, you keep them and you empower them and you give them the tools they need to grow, instead of having people in that dictatorship, like you just said, like the puppet. Like you don't want to be the guy that just feels like everybody has to come to you to get an approval for everything. So I would say, seriously, look at that, think about it, and for me, that's going to make a huge difference in your business. And I honestly love helping people, and that's what I'm here for.
Cool. How can people get in touch with you?
So my Instagram is alpha_academy_WYFY, which means would you follow you. That is the one way. And then I'm Nate Shipman on Facebook. You can reach out to me there and DM me, and I will always respond.
Awesome. Well, it's been an amazing episode, a great chat. Thank you so much for stopping in. I certainly learned a lot, and I know everyone else did too. So thank you guys for joining us. This has been another episode of the A-Lister Show. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, and hey, get in contact with Nate. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.